I tried to manipulate my dad into sobriety. And today I'm going to tell you what worked and what didn't. When my dad got sober in the early 80s, it was like the biggest relief ever for everybody who knew him, because he was a radical alcoholic. He wasn't just kind of an alcoholic. He was full on, full trouble, full catastrophe alcoholic. He would wreck the car. He would go to the bars. He would get in fights. He would end up in jail. He would end up in the hospital. He would come home. He would cause all kinds of trouble. He would harass and abuse my mom. He would harass and abuse us. He would be suicidal. He would injure himself. He did all kinds of stuff. And it was complete chaos with him in your life as an alcoholic, because he was chaotic. So when he got sober, wow, it was like a miracle. It was such a miracle. He turned into a completely different person. He was warm, he was charming, he was sweet, he was personable. You could talk to him. He was always bright, I knew that. Very successful salesman, went to work for the Hartford in San Diego County, sold investment plans, was the #1 salesman from the moment he signed his contract until he retired. Did well financially. My stepmom was doing well financially. She was managing avocado groves in Southern California. Everything was wonderful. Well, eventually, they moved up to the desert and kind of reoriented their lives there. And about 20 years after he first got sober, my brother called me out of the blue. And it was out of the blue because he hadn't been speaking to me, which happened frequently. So I knew it was important. So I picked up the phone, said hello. He's like, I gotta talk to you. I'm like, okay, what's going on? He said, Dad started drinking again. I'm like, what? He said, Dad started drinking again. I'm like, what? He said, Sal, he relapsed. And I was just like, oh my gosh, no. I could feel my world crumbling around me. I had that all wrapped up. Pretty little package. I thought that was a done deal. And I was in complete shock. It was like I got hit in the head with a 2x4. And I just started thinking over the next 2 or 3 days, I'm like, we got to do something about this. We got to do something about this. So I called my brother. I'm like, we have to do something about this. He said, well, I'm really not sure what we can do. I don't know what to do. I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk to him. Because he gave me lots of information about alcoholism when he was sober. So I'm going to recite that information back to him and show him his flawed thinking. So I called him. Picked up the phone. Hi, Dad, how you doing? Hi, honey. Oh, so good to hear from you. I thought you weren't going to talk to me anymore because I've been drinking again. I'm like, no, Dad, I'm going to talk to you. Because it really doesn't matter. I'm still the same person. So if I'm drinking and I'm not drinking, it really doesn't matter. I'm like, well, yeah, Dad, it kind of does matter. Because I remember you told me that an alcoholic had to be sober a good 6 weeks, especially a hardcore alcoholic like you were, to be able to have a pertinent conversation with anybody, because their head wouldn't be clear until then. He said, I didn't say that. I said, you did say that. You absolutely did. So I recited practically the day, the time, where I was standing, what I was wearing, because I was go off into the weeds with that. He was like, well, okay, well, that's not really true. That's just meeting talk. I'm like, it's not meeting talk, Dad. It was true. It was true, and it's true now. You've got to stop drinking. I don't want to stop drinking, and I'm not going to stop drinking. And if you only love me when I'm sober, then you don't really love me at all. I'm like, oh, God. Okay, Dad. Okay, well, I love you. I'm going to talk to you later. So I call my brother. That didn't work. I'm like, you need to go up to the desert and talk to my stepmom, Marilyn, and try to get her to leave, because that worked the first time. When she got so fed up she was going to leave, that's what brought him to his senses. He's like, Sal, I don't think that's going to work. They're old now. Where's she going to go? They live up there all by themselves. They're not really close to anybody. She can't really like strike out on her own and start a new career. Where's she going to go? I said, well, she can live with one of her kids. I had 4 step siblings. We had 4 step siblings. He's like, okay, well, I'll try. So he went up to the desert, talked to my mom, my stepmom, I mean, and tried to reason with her and explain to her how if she left, my dad would stop drinking, perhaps. She said, no, not leaving. Where am I going to go? Well, she had a point. She didn't have a lot of options. She said, he's not really doing anything wrong. He's just drinking. He's not really, doesn't come home angry. He just goes to the bar and drinks for a while and then drives the mile back home on the dirt roads. So that didn't really work. And I said, well, did you talk to her about her pain meds? He said, yeah, I did. Because my stepmom had incredible back pain. It was really, really bad. So she used some meds, and sometimes that didn't work real well either. He said, I talked to her. I said, how'd it go? He said, nope. She's not going to stop using the meds or cut back or anything. Well, did you try talking to him some more? Yep. He's not going to stop drinking. And I was just like, this can't happen. This can't be. Because I didn't really know that alcoholics relapse. That actually, statistically, it's pretty high, especially for a while. I just thought because he had 20 years in, we were good. Not necessarily. Well, I was so upset. I called my godmother, who was very wise, and she said, Sally, your dad is making decisions for his life. Your stepmom is making decisions for her life. You have a husband, you have a son. You need to make decisions for your life. And I thought, I know she's right. She said, there's nothing you can do about this. You can pray. We're going to pray. We're going to ask the Lord to save your dad, but there's really nothing you can do about it. So I started praying, and I still talked to him occasionally, and we still went through the same round robin of, you would love me either way if you really loved me, and all that stuff. Okay, Dad, whatever. And of course, I was still very upset, but what was I going to do? I didn't really have much I could do. Well, around 2004 or 5, my dad called me out of the blue. I said, hey, Dad, how's it going? He said, it's going good. I want you to know I stopped drinking today. And I'm like, well, that's good. In fact, that's great. What made you stop drinking? He said, well, I went to a psychiatrist that Marilyn sent me to, and he told me, Jay, it's not your fault. You're an alcoholic. Your recovery, however, is your responsibility. And I knew at that moment I had a choice to make, because if I didn't sober up then, I was going to drink myself to death. I was going to hurt a lot of people, and it wasn't going to be pretty. So I decided to stop. I'm like, well, that's great, Dad. That's really good. He said, I have a sponsor and going to meetings. And for the next almost 10 years, he did very, very well in his recovery. Very active in the meetings, had a little circle of buddies. They would get in spats. He was always the peacemaker. One day they got in a fight in the parking lot. It was the drug addicts against the alcoholics, and they had to go to court. And my dad was right in there, still being friends with everybody. And he had very healthy sobriety for almost 10 years. And I was able to walk with him the last 6 months of his life when he had cancer. But he died sober, and he died saved. That happened along the way too. And the thing I learned from this experience is there's really nothing I could do. Nothing worked. The only thing that I could do was set a healthy recovery example myself. And that's all any of us can do. Until our loved one wants and knows they need help, they're probably not going to get it. And that's going to be between them and the Lord. And what we do is pray and set the best example that we can. My name is Sally New, and I coach Christian women, and I help them overcome the effects of growing up in alcoholism or addiction. And if you're currently living in alcoholism or addiction, I help you draw doable, healthy boundaries that promote family peace and focus on recovery-oriented solutions. You can reach out to me. My link is in the description below. I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a prayer request in the comments, and I will pray for you. And it was great to be with you today. I'll be back next time. Bye, guys.